Okay, I think we got it going here. All righty, so let me pull up my script and we'll go. All right, here we go. In three, two, one. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the CBO Speaks podcast. I'm your host, Donna Shealy, and glad to be with you again. Today's guest is Brian Leuth. Am I saying your name right?
That's correct.
Okay, make sure I'm doing it. Today's guest is Brian Leuth. He is serving as the Vice President for Finance and Business at Kalamazoo Valley Community College. Hello, Brian, and welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so glad to have you. So, Brian, you've been with Kalamazoo Valley Community College since 2018, starting as a controller and now serving as vice president for finance and business. So, can you walk us through your career journey and how it led you to the role you're in now?
Sure.
Hmm.
It actually started with an accounting class back in high school. One of the rare kids that took that and actually liked it, and it made sense to me. So, been pursuing accounting ever since.
Hmm.
And after college, I went into public accounting for 10 years. And half of my year, I spent auditing different institutions of higher education, both
Hmm.
4-year, 2-year, public, private, doing the financial statement audits, the related foundation audits, the single audits, both student financial aid as well as all the other fun grants that higher education institutions get to deal with.
Hmm.
And really wanted to kind of move into that strategic partner realm, and so looked for opportunities outside of public accounting to go to an institution and really deal with some of that strategic thinking and some of those challenges. And so I took an opportunity here at Kalamazoo Valley Community College, and it's been great ever since.
Awesome. Well, how did your experience as an independent auditor shape your approach to managing the financial operations of a community college?
I'd say one of the main things that I really took away from it is the education of financial information.
Mm,
At a regional accounting firm, we were dealing with owners, we were dealing with boards, and not all of them had that financial background. And so
mhm,
being able to convey the financial information in a way that made sense to them is something that's been extremely valuable that I've brought to Kalamazoo Valley, and being able to work with all of our stakeholders, whether it's internal stakeholders across the institution, whether it's our external stakeholders, really
mhm,
being able to convey where we are financially, what we're trying to troubleshoot, what we're
mhm.
trying to move towards, and being able to put the financial information in front of them in a way that makes sense to them, whether it's visualizations, whether it's just having the conversation, has been one piece that's been extremely valuable as
Mhm.
as I've transitioned into this role.
Awesome. And speaking of the transition, so what would you say inspired your transition from auditing to working directly in higher education?
I'd say the mission was really what drew me to it. I really like the open access
Mhm,
approach of the community colleges, and so finding a way to really balance that, supporting the student goal, but
mhm,
having all of the financial information really doesn't necessarily follow that path. If you're a manufacturer and you have a good product and you sell a lot of it, those dollars come in. But as a public institution, you've got this disconnect between, receiving public dollars, but trying to serve as many students as possible,
mhm.
and trying to serve some of those students that are underrepresented
Right.
in many ways at a
Yeah.
community college is a challenge that's been really rewarding, but also what was really drawing me to this opportunity.
Awesome. Well, in your role as VP for finance and business, I know you oversee a wide range of responsibilities. First of all, talk about everything that you oversee, and then give us a what does a typical day look like for you?
Okay, so everything I oversee,
Mm-hmm.
budget development process, your normal business operations, accounts receivable, accounts payable, student financial services, payroll, and let's see what else, grants accounting, Then we've got our auxiliary services. So we've got bookstore and food service, also oversee financial aid, and then also get involved in our risk management.
Mm-hmm.
A typical day.
Yeah.
Again, that's one of the things that I enjoy is it's hard to come up with a typical day.
Right.
There's typically more meetings than I would necessarily like, but a
Mm-hmm.
lot of those meetings are really good, working sessions that we've tried to carve out time for, whether it's cross-institutional or even just within the business office about, doing some efficiency work and those types
Mm-hmm.
of things.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of troubleshooting or, again, strategic thinking of, how can we take this work that we've been doing and continue to do it? How can we continue to allocate resources where we need to allocate resources?
Mm-hmm.
What can we do to get more resources to what's working? Those types
Yeah.
of conversations.
Yeah. And on those lines, like, how do you approach balancing the needs of the students, the staff, and the institution?
If I could figure that out, I could probably retire.
Yeah, right.
That's what I really enjoy,
Mm-hmm.
those conversations, and I always try to start the conversation not with a no. I think that's easy for, the CFOs to be pigeonholed into that person that always says no
Mm-hmm.
and sticking to the budget and those types of things. But I always try to reframe the conversation of, let's see if we can figure it out. Let's see if, we can talk about how we are allocating resources.
Mm-hmm.
There's really no initiative on campus that's negative, that has
Yeah.
negative outcomes and those types of things. Everything is always helping the students, but
Right.
some things are more helpful than others, or are more impactful than others, or impact more students than others.
Mm-hmm.
So really kind of having those conversations with the necessary individuals to not necessarily lead them to an answer, but provide them the information so that we can reach a conclusion that makes sense to everyone, and then everyone can kind of take that information back to those areas, so
Mm-hmm.
that message gets out in a way that it's not, oh, finance said this or so and so
Mm-hmm.
said this. It's okay, here's why we're going in the direction that we're going.
Right.
And it builds that consensus, or it builds that support, that's necessary to really keep those cross-institution projects moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So, what would you say, Brian, are some of the biggest financial challenges community colleges face today?
I'd say one of the biggest ones continues to be, we typically see those students that aren't necessarily as prepared for college. And
Mm.
so making sure that they've got all of the necessary academic supports along with all of the other challenges that they're dealing with. The
Mhm.
majority of our students are part-time students that are potentially caretakers, either for children or for parents. They've
Mhm.
got full-time jobs. And so, trying to support them holistically
Mhm.
in addition to all of the regular academic work, so
Mhm.
making sure that we've got hours available for tutoring or testing center, the library, those types of things at times that are convenient for them, making sure that they know that they've got resources available for advising, for
Mhm.
counseling, and, just the regular mental health challenges that everyone's dealing with, making sure
Yes.
that they've got the resources for food and dealing with food insecurity or housing insecurity, all of those types of things, in addition to the regular,
Mhm.
academic work that we do.
Yeah. I always find that community colleges they play such a vital role to me in higher education, and I want to know, what financial strategies have you found to be most effective in maintaining affordability and access for the students?
I think it goes back to, again, having those conversations constantly,
Mhm.
as far as
Mhm.
the allocation of resources go.
Mhm.
It goes towards pursuing grant opportunities to help further, those strategic areas that you're trying to develop, whether it's, getting additional resources for mental health, or getting additional resources for, a food pantry on campus. Those types of things can
Mhm.
kind of give you a little bit more flexibility with the institutional dollars if you've got grant support for some of those other areas. Um, I'd say those are a couple of the strategies that we've used to really try to stretch those dollars as far as possible, and continuing to advocate with, the state and with the federal government and those types of things to continue to provide the support that's vital for students.
Yeah, no, that's great. Kalamazoo Valley is known for its innovative programs. And so, how do you align your financial decisions with the college's mission and the long term goals?
Continuing to measure things,
Yeah.
continuing to look and see, is it doing what we expected? Is it tracking how we thought it was? Do we need to shift? Do we need to, not necessarily close doors and open doors, but maybe we just need to, change the direction slightly, move in a slightly different direction. We try to track things, keep new initiatives kind of in this pilot or incubator stage for a couple of years to make it a little bit easier to track and do some additional reporting and those types of things. And that helps as we move towards institutionalizing and keeping them long term, to go through that process and that evaluation.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think those are the main things.
Yeah. No, that's great. Now it's time for you to brag a little bit, but can you share a project or an initiative that you've led that you're particularly proud of during your time at Kalamazoo Valley?
That I've led, I'd say recently we've gone through a grant opportunity with NACUBO, in partnership across the institution, at looking at, we focused really on the data side of things, data governance, and really strengthening that across the institution. We've had on our strategic plan, and we've continued to work towards really strengthening and using data to be more data informed in our decision making, and really institutionalizing it. There were pockets of it across the college, but really institutionalizing and formalizing those to be common practices. And so we really had a 3-year grant that was focusing on equitable student outcomes, and we focused on really strengthening our data governance framework, because we knew we had to have that in place to really utilize the data and really have trust and transparency across the institution and the data to really help those equitable student outcomes. And so we had a cross-institutional team that worked on a number of initiatives during that time period to really strengthen our data governance. It's not done; it'll never be done. It continues to be a ever-evolving process, but that really helped provide some momentum and lay some groundwork for some further initiatives that we're working on, as far as building out some dashboards and some other types of things that'll be utilized on a more day-to-day basis when it comes to decision making and just improving student success.
That's awesome. Well, as a leader, Brian, what do you see as the most important qualities for managing the business side of higher education?
To me, it starts with listening.
I like that.
And really listening to understand, not listening to say, oh, I know what I'm going to say, or I know how to answer that, or I know what direction we should go, but listening to understand, and just kind of taking that step back to make sure you understand, I think is absolutely critical when it comes to leadership, and then utilizing that to, provide that guidance, be transparent, and be willing to learn from failure, and acknowledge failure. We've all had failure, and I think it's important to not shy away from it, because if we don't fail, that means we're not really trying, we're not really growing. And so, finding that balance where, you want to encourage people to try things, but recognize when it's not working and not continue to do that. But don't make it so punitive that people aren't willing to try to improve anymore because they just want to stay safe. I don't think the organization will thrive if we're just trying to stay safe.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. What trends or changes in higher education finance do you think leaders should be paying attention to over the next few years?
I think a lot of it stems for just changes in higher education in general, and figuring out how that's going to play when it comes to the finance. I think we're going to continue to see some changes in the micro credentials and
Mm-hmm.
how industries are going to be recognizing those, and how what role higher education is going to play in supporting and offering those.
Mm-hmm.
For us in particular, it's going to be continuing to kind of break down that 2-year college stigma,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing the value in, say, the technical trades or that 2-year degree,
Yeah.
and as the higher education industry as a whole is challenged with the value proposition.
Mm-hmm.
And we continue to hear that,
Yeah.
making sure that 2-year degree, and those technical trades, again, can support that value, and can be seen as a viable option with a
Mm-hmm.
well-paying career and all of those types of things. I think that could continue to be a benefit to the 2-year institutions, as we are challenged to make sure that there is that gainful employment and those types of outcomes when it comes to the success of the students after they leave the institution.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. What advice would you give to someone aspiring to take on a role like yours in higher education finance?
I'd say continue to push yourself slightly out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the institution, can't just thrive by staying safe. I think individuals can't just thrive by doing what they do well. I think you need to continue to kind of push yourself and understand, play to your strengths, but understand where you can develop, and find opportunities to work on developing those
Mm-hmm.
areas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what excites you most about the future of community colleges and their role in education?
I think they're perfectly situated for all of the challenges that we're seeing in the higher education industry. When we talk about
Mm-hmm.
the value of higher education or the cost of higher education, we're at a sweet spot as far as typically lower tuition costs. As we
Mm-hmm.
talk about trying to shorten the time to credential, having
Mm-hmm.
2-year degrees or even certificates, are things that we're already doing. So really, it's just kind of taking what we're already doing, and then somehow getting coordinated with the industries that we're working with, to make sure that they're seeing the value in it as well,
Mm-hmm.
and making sure students can see that pipeline of graduating high school and getting to a good job. And I think we're primed in a good position to be able to fill that gap in between, whether it's one semester, 2 years, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's great. And what legacy, I like to use that word, do you do you hope to leave behind in your current role and in higher education? Like, thinking about mentorship and succession plans, what do you hope to leave behind?
I just hope to be a good steward, in the sense that when the next person coming behind me, they
Mm-hmm.
find KVCC in a better spot than it was when I started. So
Mm-hmm.
if that means financially, if that means succession planning, and there's people ready to step in, all of those factor into it. But you know, I,
Mm-hmm.
that would be my goal, is that it's found better than when I started, that it's been
Yeah,
improved.
that's
So,
awesome. No, that's great. Is there anything else we didn't touch on today that you'd like to share with our listeners about your journey in higher education?
um, nothing in particular. I would just say, follow the path. I didn't think necessarily in high school
Mhm.
that,
Right.
I started high school liking accounting, because I thought, what, I could just sit at a computer doing spreadsheets, and the numbers make sense and all that kind of stuff. But, as you get going and you find out that
Mhm.
you like the problem solving, you like working with the owners or the boards and those types of things on the challenges, and you start doing more presentations and public speaking and all that kind of stuff that you never thought you'd be doing, just follow
Yeah,
the path where it goes, and make sure you find something that you love.
that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us for this episode of CBO Speaks. It's brought to you by the National Association of College and University Business Officers. You can find resources for today's episode, as well as a wide variety of research and tools at nakubo.org. Make sure you subscribe to CBO Speaks wherever you get your podcasts, and so that you can get the latest episodes instantly. And on behalf of Brian Leuth of Kalamazoo Valley Community College, I want to thank you for joining us on CBO Speaks. I'm Donna Shealy. Be well. Okay.